Hey, let's do a quick 3-eye atlas update. There's a lot of talk out there. Avi Loeb has most notably reduced his probability of it being alien from 40% to 20%. Right? That's in the face of all these continued anomalies. One of the newer anomalies is what they're calling the ghost shell anomaly. New images from November 11th reveal a faint, symmetrically expanding ring or a ghost shell encircling the comet's coma. This shell has ballooned by 20% in 4 days, and the expansion implies an explosive mass loss, potentially up to 10% of the nucleus's minimum mass in a single week, a rate that defies standard sublimation physics. There's also the concept of symmetry versus chaos. In nature, comets are potato shaped and they heat unevenly and they cause chaotic, lopsided jets. A perfect symmetrical ring implies a uniform internal structure, like like maybe a helix or something, or a pressure valve like release mechanism, raising questions about whether the object is a melting snowball or something deliberate. There's the continued tail anomaly. A sunward anti tail is still growing, extending over 1 million kilometers towards the sun. Spectroscopic analysis hints at strong carbon dioxide and cyanogen emissions, with the nucleus possibly being 40% carbon, far richer than expected for a comet of this type. Now, what's interesting about this is you're hearing some people talk about it's changed color and it's been unexpected, but the reality is because of the strong carbon dioxide emission concentration, that light is in the realm of possibility there. Like that probably explains it. So it's not so much such a if it was water, it would be a slightly different color. That's what the color change is. And they're saying that the nucleus is possibly 40% carbon, and that's very rich for a comet of this type. So there's some upcoming critical tests that are going to help us understand more about it, to what degree we can know more about an object going so fast, so far away from us. But scientists are going to track the shell's behavior. If it fades and collapses asymmetrically, it would suggest a natural carbon dioxide sublimation. If it holds its symmetry or exhibits a non gravitational push, it's going to support the artificial exotic chemistry hypothesis. Now, remember, I'm saying artificial as in possibly, that could be alien, but it's also about exotic chemistry that we don't understand, physics, and kind of like a jet propulsion coming from all this that doesn't fit the echo chamber that we've been in because of our solar system. But we're going to be looking at that. We're going to, because that's interesting. Normal comets don't have this asymmetrical coma around it that's preserved. Usually, it's going to all of it because of the speed it's going through. It's going to take on this less than symmetrical shape, right? So that's what we're going to be looking for. We got better and better optics. Remember what I said, as we get into December, we're going to have better optics. We're going to observe more. We're going to understand more. Both the Hubble and the James Webb telescopes are scheduled for high resolution observations to resolve the nucleus and date any surface fractures from the perihelion heating, if they see that. So, as I said in the beginning of this video, Loeb, his personal estimate of the probability of technological origin has been reduced from 40% to 20% based on this new data. He stresses there is a lot of remaining uncertainty, though. So this is a bit of a detective story from Loeb. He is analyzing everything. He's considering all options. He's starting to narrow in on the interstellar natural object, but he's still paying close attention to all the details there, because things like the perfect symmetry and the previous anomalies, the ecliptical plane, the timing, the planet flybys, all that stuff is really strange. But a perfect structure would suggest an isotropic, uniform in all directions release of material. And this is kind of a counterintuitive observation. Maybe extreme pressures causing it, but it that begins to make us think it's not an inert rock, right? So to move from 40% to 20% probably shows that he's listening to the evidence, even though this is not going to be popular for him to start looking at it as a natural object. And I was critical of him that he was trying to sell books from the beginning, right? And this, I'm actually happy to hear him say, look, based on the evidence I'm seeing, I'm reducing from 40 to 20. He's being honest. Very happy with that. Some of the theories that are out there, at this point, look, I'm putting these theories out here kind of as entertainment and to counter them with some facts. But there's this persistent myth of a mothership releasing probes because of the gravitational pull of where it's going to pass Jupiter. It's going to be in this little balanced spot, and that course is adjusted a little bit. And now people are saying that NASA's changed the story to kind of cloud the fact that it's going into that particular zone. It's not that they changed their story, it's just the trajectory is getting more refined as our optics get better and as the adjustments to the comet's trajectory. It's not them trying to cover something up. But this whole thing about the mothership releasing probes, it's based on the non-gravitational acceleration that happened at perihelion that did put it in Jupiter's Hill radius, right? Ideal for stable satellite deployment. And what the theory is that they could see Jupiter with alien tech for long-term monitoring. But natural outgassing explains the acceleration. The Hill radius alignment is it's still like that's an anomaly. That's like, wow, man, what a coincidence. But it's not impossible. NASA reinforces this behaving like a comet. Michio Kaku Loeb and Avi Loeb are talking about the technological thruster possibility, the blue color near perihelion from either artificial light or ionized CO, survived the solar heating without expected volatility, implying propulsion. SETI says that's about a 30 to 40% chance. So there's a little bit of discussion going on there, but the blue hue from the natural CO ions and the CO2 rich ices probably explain it, and there's been no radio signals detected to make you think that it was anything unnatural. There's talk about orbits or spheres going around the nucleus, and there's some images that kind of put that theory out there. Amateur footage shows actually 5 spheres orbiting the core, and that's like a little common trope in the conspiracy theory world. Ashton Forbes is always talking about these orbs and warp in space time and all that stuff. So there's a lot of background chatter about that. And they add that it seemed to be immune to solar ejections. It's got a lot of speculation out there, but it's likely imaging artifacts. It's probably the bad optics I was talking about. If we see these orbs when our optics get better, okay, I'm a believer. Could be dust clumps. Hubble's images so far have not resolved these 5 orbs. As our optics get better, we'll know one way or the other, right? So then you got the really fringe stuff. These guys that claim they remote viewed it and that it's a warning beacon or some sort of hybrid craft, like half comet, half craft. And there's all this talk about, the ancient Nibiru orbit, but it's not it's not bound to anything. Like, that's why it's interstellar. It's not bound, and all that's very subjective. There's no empirical support. The the anti-tail has got a lot of people thinking too, but right now none of this is causing anyone official to say this thing is artificial. I mean, that is fringe theory stuff. When you start talking about remote viewers have been there and they claim there's a craft, there's just no evidence of it, right? And as our optics get better, we're going to understand more and more. Then guess what? There's another theory out there that this whole thing is a hoax, and it's a vehicle to bring on a one world government, and that UN telescopes are, you know, giving us these images, and they're going to claim that there's some sort of alien invasion about to happen, and they're going to scare everybody to death, and we're all going to unify under the UN. Well, let me just, you know, this whole UN's going to take over has been, it's decades old, and it's so tired because the UN is almost useless now. Like all this talk about how there was going to be UN troops everywhere and martial law, all that stuff is just, unfortunately, it's unproven, unsubstantiated nonsense, and the UN is not driving this scientific discovery, and they're not gearing up. Like, none of the alien strategies hold water. None of them. And unfortunately, they're just not holding water. And so this theory about that it's going to be a government psyop to shock all the nations into subjection underneath the UN, you know, that stuff started decades ago, and we've never seen anything happen. And in fact, the UN has kind of become less and less relevant. I mean, when's the last time you saw UN troops doing anything meaningful, taking charge, taking over? I understand the whole one world trope thing, and you know, okay, we'll just have to see what happens, right? But as far as this being part of that psyop, I think that's wishful thinking on people sitting around, you know, wanting everything to change in some draconian way. But right now, we're moving towards, you know, closest approach to Earth sometime around December 19th. We're hoping for some good optics in just the coming days. Some really good images are going to put all this to rest, and we're going to better understand it. And maybe we can understand, you know, what it's like on the other side of the universe.